A calm mind is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is a result of intentional discipline, deep awareness, and a way of thinking that refuses to be controlled by external chaos. In the modern world, where noise is constant, opinions are endless, and emotions are pulled in every direction, achieving this kind of inner stability can feel impossible. Yet, the Stoics mastered it centuries ago, not because their world was peaceful, but because they understood that peace is not found in the world. It is found in the mind. When we look at the writings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, we see a consistent message. Your mind is yours alone. Nothing and no one can disturb your peace without your consent. This is not just a comforting thought. It is a challenge. It means that if you are disturbed, the cause is not the event itself, but the way you have judged it. The Stoics believe that events are neutral. It is our interpretation that gives them weight, power, and meaning. If you can control your interpretation, you can control your emotions. Calming the mind begins with acceptance. The Stoics didn't waste energy wishing reality was different. They saw reality for what it was, stripped of emotion, stripped of hope or fear, and they asked, what can I control here? Most of the time, the answer is not the event, but the response. When you learn to respond instead of react, you take back the power that distractions, insults, or difficulties would otherwise steal from you. Think about how easily people are thrown off balance. One rude comment can ruin an entire day. One small setback can lead to frustration that lasts for hours. The Stoic sees this as self-inflicted harm. Why hand over your mood to something so small? If you knew your mind could be unshakable, would you allow the trivial to control you? A calm mind comes from the recognition that most things are not worth your inner disturbance. Another key to calmness is detachment from outcomes. The more you cling to specific results, the more vulnerable you are to disappointment and anxiety. The Stoics practice a more fatty love of fate, not because they were passive, but because they understood that the future is never entirely in their hands. They worked diligently, but they did not allow the outcome to dictate their inner peace. If it went well, they were grateful. If it did not, they still kept their composure. Your emotions are shaped by your thoughts. If you dwell on what you fear, you feed anxiety. If you replay an insult, you feed anger. If you compare yourself to others, you feed envy. A Stoic mind watches these thoughts arise, but refuses to feed them. Instead, it replaces them with thoughts that align with reason, virtue, and clarity. Calmness is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of emotion. One of the most powerful Stoic practices is premeditatio malorum, or premeditation of evils. This means you mentally prepare for possible challenges before they happen. By imagining difficulties in advance, you rob them of their power to shock you. You face them in your mind first, so when they arrive in reality, they feel familiar, manageable, and far less threatening. This is how the Stoics walked through life unshaken. They were prepared in advance. The mind also calms when it focuses on the present moment. The Stoics understood that most suffering comes from dwelling on the past or fearing the future. The past is beyond your reach, and the future is uncertain. So why poison the present with both? When you return your attention to what is directly in front of you, you find clarity and strength that distraction had hidden from you. Silence and solitude are also vital. In a world that rewards noise and constant stimulation, the Stoic takes time to withdraw, to sit with their thoughts, to observe their own mind. This is not isolation. It is maintenance. Just as you clean a room to keep it orderly, you must regularly clear your mind of unnecessary clutter. A few minutes of deliberate stillness each day can strengthen your ability to remain calm in the face of chaos. Finally, the Stoics remind us that life is brief. If you spend it in constant agitation, you waste the very gift you've been given. Seneca warned against scattering our time in trivial worries, reminding us that life is long enough if used wisely. A calm mind is a mind that values its own time, refusing to spend it on needless mental battles. The calm mind is not weak. It is powerful. It sees clearly when others panic. It remains steady when others collapse. It is not indifferent to life, but deeply engaged with it, because it refuses to be ruled by emotions that serve no purpose. Mastering a calm mind and steady emotions is not a one-time achievement. It is a lifelong practice. Each day gives you the opportunity to choose composure over chaos, reason over reaction, and peace over disturbance. If you can learn to master this, you will live as the Stoics did, not untouched by life, but unbroken by it. You will meet challenges with the same strength as opportunities, and you will carry a quiet power that cannot be taken from you. This is the ultimate freedom, and it begins with a decision to rule your mind, so the world cannot. The mind is like a wild horse when left untamed. It charges at every distraction, every fear, every desire without restraint. The Stoics saw this clearly and understood that unless you train the mind, it will drag you into unnecessary suffering. But unlike the horse, your mind cannot be physically restrained. It must be guided by reason, discipline, and awareness. This is why Stoicism is not simply a philosophy you read about. It's a daily training ground for the soul. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, ruled an empire surrounded by war, betrayal, and uncertainty. Yet in his private writings, he reminded himself again and again that his peace depended only on what happened inside his own mind. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This was not a poetic sentiment. It was a survival strategy. As emperor, he could not stop storms of politics, plagues, or the ambitions of dangerous men, but he could stop himself from becoming their emotional prisoner. To learn to calm the mind, you must first see your emotions as guests, not as masters. Anger may knock at your door, anxiety may visit, sadness may linger, but you are not required to feed them, entertain them, or let them stay forever. The Stoics did not deny emotions, but they refused to surrender to them. They practiced pausing before responding, creating a space between stimulus and reaction. In that space lies the power to choose. This is where calmness lives. Imagine you are walking down a street and someone insults you. The natural, untrained reaction is to flare up, to defend your pride, to return insult for insult. But the Stoic asks, who is truly in control here? If one stranger's words can dictate my mood, then I have given my power away. A calm mind sees the insult for what it is, just sound, just air, and moves on untouched. Training this kind of composure begins with small daily moments. You don't wait for a crisis to test your calm. You practice it in traffic, when someone cuts you off. You practice it in line at the store, when the cashier moves slowly. You practice it when plans are delayed, when people are late, when technology fails. Every minor irritation is a training ground for your inner fortress. The Stoics also remind us to see life through a wider lens. Much of our distress comes from magnifying small problems into unbearable burdens. Epictetus advised to see yourself as an actor in a play. You did not write the script, you do not choose the scenes, but you can play your role with dignity. Whether your part is short or long, whether it's filled with joy or hardship, you can still choose to perform it well. Seeing life this way frees you from thinking that every difficulty is a personal attack. It is simply part of the script. A calm mind is deeply connected to gratitude. The Stoics practiced gratitude not as a shallow exercise, but as a grounding force. Every morning, they reminded themselves that they would encounter people who are ignorant, selfish, and unjust, and yet they also reminded themselves of the gift of being alive, of being able to think, act, and choose. Gratitude pulls the mind away from what is missing and focuses it on what is already within reach. You cannot hold gratitude and resentment at the same time. One will push the other out. One of the greatest threats to calmness is comparison. In our age, we compare constantly: status, possessions, looks, achievements. The Stoics warn against measuring your worth by what others have, because it will forever rob you of contentment. Seneca wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for things which he is not, but rejoices for those which he has." The moment you shift your focus from competing with others to competing with your past self, you begin to feel peace. Calmness also comes from remembering the impermanence of all things. The Stoics meditated on death, not to be morbid, but to see life's true value. When you remember that nothing lasts forever, not the pain, not the joy, not even you stop wasting energy on what is fleeting. Instead, you live with more intention. You spend less time being offended and more time creating meaning. Think of the ocean. On the surface, waves crash violently, but deep beneath, the water is still. The Stoic mind is like the deep ocean. It remains steady regardless of surface storms. People around you may panic, rage, or despair, but you hold a deeper stillness. This does not make you cold or indifferent. It makes you reliable, dependable, and free. The Stoics also embrace the power of perspective. They would imagine viewing Earth from high above, seeing cities, wars, and dramas as tiny movements on a vast globe. Suddenly, what seemed urgent and unbearable from up close became small and almost trivial from a distance. You can use the same mental shift in daily life. When you step back and see the larger picture, your mind automatically releases tension. Patience is another cornerstone of a calm mind. In the modern world, impatience is often treated as a normal reaction, but it's actually a subtle form of self-torture. The Stoic understands that everything happens in its own time. Just as you cannot make a tree grow faster by shouting at it, you cannot force life's timing without damaging your own peace. Patience is not passive. It is active trust in the process. To strengthen calmness, you must also guard your mental diet. What you read, watch, and listen to feed your mind just as food feeds your body. If you constantly consume negativity, outrage, and gossip, your mind will mirror it. The Stoic chooses inputs wisely, philosophy, wisdom, and truth, so that the mind remains strong against the noise of the world. Lastly, the Stoic path to calmness is not about isolation from life struggles. It is about meeting those struggles with an unshakable spirit. The calm mind still acts, still strives, still engages, but it does so without panic, without desperation, without fear. You may lose possessions, relationships, even health, but if you keep your composure, you lose nothing essential. This is the essence of the Stoic approach. Not to avoid the storms, but to remain the steady lighthouse that guides ships through them. When your mind is calm, you are not just helping yourself. You are helping everyone around you. Your calmness becomes contagious, a silent reassurance that chaos can be met with clarity. The longer you walk this path, the more you will realize that a calm mind is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Without it, you are easily controlled by the world. With it, you are free. This freedom is what the Stoics sought above all else. And it is what you can cultivate today, in this very moment, by choosing reason over reaction, stillness over struggle, and wisdom over noise. There is a great misunderstanding in the modern world. That peace comes when everything outside of you is in order, that if people behave well, if circumstances turn in your favor, if nothing unexpected happened, then finally you could relax. But the Stoics knew that this is a trap because the external world will never stop changing. The winds will shift, fortunes will turn, and people will continue to be people, with all their flaws and unpredictability. If your peace depends on the world being perfect, you will be restless until your last breath. Instead, the Stoics placed the responsibility for calm entirely on the individual. They said, "Do not hope for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and you will be serene." This was not surrender. It was alignment. The river does not fight the current. It flows with it, and yet it still moves forward. When your mind is calm, you are no longer at war with reality. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead ask, "How can I meet this well?" This shift in thinking is the beginning of emotional mastery. In daily life, one of the fastest ways to disturb your mind is to take everything personally. The Stoics refused to do this. They understood that most people's actions are a reflection of their own character, not yours. If someone is rude, it says more about the state of their soul than about your worth. If someone betrays you, it reveals their nature, not your value. By not personalizing every slight or setback, you free yourself from carrying unnecessary emotional weight. Calmness also grows when you live in harmony with your values. Many people feel inner conflict because they act against their own conscience, seeking approval, chasing short-term pleasure, or avoiding the hard but right choice. The Stoics believed that virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control was a foundation of peace. When your actions match your principles, you walk through life without regret or inner turmoil. The mind needs space to breathe. In our age, that space is under constant attack by endless stimulation, notifications, news, opinions, noise. If you never withdraw from this, your mind becomes like muddy water, clouded, restless, unable to see clearly. The Stoics often retreated into silence, not to escape life, but to return to it stronger. A short daily practice of sitting quietly, observing your thoughts without judgment, and letting them pass like clouds, trains your mind to remain still even when life becomes loud. The discipline of controlling attention is central to calmness. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." When your attention is scattered, you live in a constant state of mental rehearsal for disasters that may never come. By returning attention to the present, this breath, this step, this task, you interrupt the endless loop of worry. Another Stoic practice that calms a mind is voluntary discomfort. At first, this sounds strange. How can deliberately facing difficulty make you more peaceful? But the Stoics knew that if you occasionally step outside your comfort, the challenges life throws at you will feel smaller. Skipping a meal, taking a cold walk in winter, rising earlier than usual, these small acts strengthen the mind's ability to remain steady when genuine hardships arrive. If you want emotional steadiness, learn to delay your reactions. When something provokes you, pause. When you are tempted to speak in anger, pause. When fear rises, pause. That pause is a space where wisdom has a chance to speak before impulse takes control. Over time, these pauses build a reputation within yourself that you can be trusted not to betray your own peace for the sake of a moment's reaction. Life will sometimes bring you pain that no philosophy can erase. Loss, grief, disappointment. The Stoics did not deny this. They wept when they lost loved ones. They felt sorrow when faced with tragedy. But they did not let these feelings grow into a permanent storm. They honored the emotion, then slowly returned to equilibrium, remembering that everything in life is on loan. Nothing is truly ours, not possessions, not people, not even our own body. To hold everything lightly is to suffer less when it must be let go. The calm mind is also honest with itself. Many people live in constant agitation because they refuse to face uncomfortable truths about their habits, their fears, their responsibilities. The Stoic does not hide from the truth, because it is only by seeing reality clearly that one can respond well to it. If something is within your control, you act. If it is not, you release it. This separation is the heart of Stoic peace. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he would encounter selfish, envious, dishonest people, and yet he also reminded himself that these people were not enemies. They were human beings, acting out of ignorance. This mindset turned potential conflicts into opportunities for patience. Instead of seeing the world as hostile, you see it as filled with teachers, each person giving you a chance to practice self-control. When the mind is calm, you begin to notice beauty where you once saw nothing. The simple warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of breathing, the sound of rain, all become reminders that peace is available now, not in some distant future, when everything is perfect. The Stoics also understood that inner peace is not fragile. It becomes stronger through use. Each time you meet difficulty with composure, your mind learns that you are capable. Each time you let go of what you cannot control, your burden becomes lighter. Over months and years, this compounds into a deep, quiet confidence that cannot be faked. The truth is, most people have never truly met their own mind. They live surrounded by noise, pulled by impulses, reacting without thought. But the calm mind is different. It has been met, studied, and trained. It knows its patterns, its weaknesses, its strengths. And because of this self-knowledge, it cannot be easily shaken. And here is something the Stoics would tell you. It is not enough to hear these ideas once. The mind forgets. Life distracts, which is why they wrote, reflected, and reminded themselves daily. Just as the body needs regular nourishment, the mind needs regular reminders of the truths that free it. The more you practice, the more you will see that a calm mind is not something you have to chase. It is something you uncover once the noise is removed. It is your natural state, beneath the layers of fear, desire, and distraction. And once you taste it, you will protect it fiercely. To truly master a calm mind, you must first become aware how often it is pulled away from the present. Watch your thoughts for a single hour, and you'll see how they drift toward yesterday's regret, toward tomorrow's uncertainty, toward other people's opinions. The Stoics compare the undisciplined mind to a ship tossed at sea without a rudder, constantly moving, but never in control of its direction. To bring calm, You must take hold of the rudder, guiding your thoughts with intention. Consider the way most arguments unfold. They begin with a spark, a word, a gesture, a misunderstanding, and quickly turn into a fire that consumes both people. But if one person chooses calmness, the fire dies before it can grow. Epictetus taught that no one can make you angry without your cooperation. They can throw the spark, but you decide whether to add fuel. If you withhold it, there is no fire. Calmness does not mean weakness. In fact, it requires tremendous strength. It is easy to explode, easy to lash out, easy to drown in emotion. But to stand still in the middle of chaos, to keep your voice steady, your mind clear, that is power. And it is a power that anyone can develop if they are willing to practice daily. One practice is to imagine that you are an observer of your own life. When you feel emotions rising, step outside yourself for a moment. Watch as if you are seeing another person in your situation. What advice would you give them? This small shift creates distance between you and the emotion, allowing reason to guide you instead of impulse. Another is to prepare for the day before it begins. Marcus Aurelius would start his mornings reminding himself that he would face rudeness, ingratitude, selfishness, and arrogance. By expecting these things, he stripped them of their power to surprise him. How often does frustration come not from the event itself, but from the shock that it happened at all? When you accept that the world will not always behave as you wish, you can meet its difficulties with readiness instead of resistance. In cultivating calmness, your speech matters as much as your thoughts. The Stoics advise speaking less, and only when necessary. Words can stir the emotions, yours and others. So the disciplined mind speaks carefully, avoiding gossip, avoiding unnecessary criticism, avoiding arguments that serve no purpose. When your words are measured, your mind follows, becoming less reactive, more deliberate. Nature was another teacher for the Stoics. They observed the way seasons change without hurry, the way rivers flow without force, the way trees stood through storms without complaint. They took these lessons into their own lives, understanding that calmness is not about escaping life's changes, but moving through them with grace. Just as a tree does not resist the wind but bends with it, the Stoic mind adapts without breaking. There is also the discipline of not chasing what is unnecessary. Much of our restlessness comes from wanting more wealth, more recognition, more possessions. The Stoics reminded themselves that the person who needs little is the one who is truly rich. When you stop chasing what you do not need, you find more time, more space, more peace. This is why they valued simplicity, not as deprivation, but as liberation. When trouble comes, the calm mind looks for the opportunity within it. This is not blind optimism. It is training. Every difficulty can strengthen a virtue: patience, courage, resilience. Seneca wrote that a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials. If you see challenges as training, you approach them with curiosity instead of fear. It is also worth remembering that calmness is contagious. When you remain steady, others around you begin to mirror your energy. A calm leader creates a calm team. A calm friend brings stability to those in distress. You may never know how many people you help simply by refusing to be swept away by emotion. The Stoics would have you reflect each night. Before sleep, they would review the day. Where did I remain calm? Where did I lose control? What can I improve tomorrow? This nightly reflection is not self-punishment. It is maintenance, a way to keep the mind clear and ready for the next day's challenges. And perhaps the deepest truth of Stoic calm is this: you cannot control what life brings, but you can always control how you meet it. This is the unshakable foundation. The storms will come, but if your mind is anchored in reason, discipline, and perspective, they will pass without destroying you. So when you wake tomorrow, begin again. Expect the trials. Accept the imperfections. Choose your responses carefully. Speak less. Pause more. Step back and observe before you react. Practice gratitude for what you have, and let go of what you cannot keep. And in time, you will discover that calmness is not something you wait for. It is something you carry within you, unshaken by the noise of the world. When you begin to live with a calm mind, you will notice something curious. The same world that once seemed hostile begins to soften. It is not that the world has changed. It is that your perception has. You will see that much of what disturbed you before was not the event itself, but the way you met it. And when you no longer meet it with agitation, the disturbance dissolves before it takes hold. Epictetus used to tell his students, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about them." This truth can sound simple, even obvious, but to truly live it is to change the entire way you experience life. It means that if someone speaks harshly to you, you recognize that their words are just sounds carried by air into your mind gives them meaning. It means that when plans change unexpectedly, you see not disaster, but simply a different route to the same day. The mind in its untrained state wants to control everything: people, outcomes, timing. But the Stoics understood that this is like trying to control the wind. You can set your sails, you can adjust your course, but you cannot order the wind to blow as you wish. A calm mind accepts this, focusing energy only on what can be influenced and leaving the rest in nature's course. In the stillness of early morning, before the day's noise begins, is a perfect time to train this perspective. Rise before the world demands your attention. Sit in quiet and remind yourself, today will bring both ease and challenge, and I am ready for both. This simple ritual, done daily, builds a foundation of readiness that lasts throughout the hours ahead. It is in the smallest irritations that your calmness is tested the most. A dropped glass, a slow internet connection, a traffic jam. Many people dismiss these moments as too small to matter, but they are the perfect training ground. If you cannot remain steady in the small storms, how will you remain steady in the great ones? Every time you meet a small frustration with patience, you are strengthening your ability to face greater challenges with the same composure. The Stoics also saw the value in imagining the worst, not to live in fear, but to dissolve it. If you fear losing something, a job, a possession, a relationship, spend time imagining that loss in detail. At first, it may feel unpleasant, but soon you will see that even in your imagination of loss, you remain alive, breathing, capable. This realization loosens fear's grip, allowing you to enjoy what you have without clinging to it desperately. Think of life like a great theater performance. You did not choose your role, nor the length of your time on stage, but you can choose to perform it well. Whether your part is filled with ease or hardship, your dignity lies in how you play it. When you understand this, the need for constant control fades, and with it, much of your restlessness. Sometimes calmness is not about doing, but about not doing. It is about resisting the urge to speak when silence is wiser, to act when waiting is better, to defend yourself when no defense is needed. The ego wants to prove itself in every moment. The calm mind knows it has nothing to prove. The more you practice, the more you will feel a gap growing between the world's chaos and your own inner state. That gap is freedom. In that gap, you can think before you speak, breathe before you act, choose before you react. Without that gap, you are a slave to impulse. With it, you are a master of yourself. One of the most beautiful effects of calmness is that it changes the quality of your relationships. When you are no longer easily offended, no longer reactive, you create space for others to show their better selves. People trust the one who is steady, because they know that storms will not shake them. The Stoics were not cold or unfeeling. They loved deeply, worked hard, and cared for their communities. But their love was not desperate, their work was not frantic, and their care was not anxious. They could give freely because they did not cling. They could face loss because they had already accepted its possibility. This is what made their peace unshakable. You might wonder if such calmness makes life dull. The opposite is true. When your mind is calm, you notice more the subtle expressions on a friend's face, the way sunlight touches the floor, the taste of food, the sound of laughter. You begin to live not in the haze of constant thought, but in the richness of the present moment. Night is another time for calm reflection. As darkness falls, take time to release the day, its successes and failures, its joys and frustrations. Write them down if you wish, then let them go. Do not carry today's weight into tomorrow. Seneca said, "He who has learned to die has unlearned to be a slave." In the same way, he who has learned to let go of the day has unlearned to be its prisoner. In time, you will find that calmness is not something you put on like armor. It becomes your skin. It moves with you, breathes with you. You no longer need to remind yourself to be calm. It is simply how you are. And from this place, you can face anything, not with indifference, but with unshakable presence. And so, when you begin to live by these Stoic principles, not as abstract ideas, but as daily habits, you'll find that your mind becomes lighter, your emotions more balanced, and your life far less dictated by the chaos around you. You'll no longer react impulsively to what others say or do. Instead, you'll respond with purpose, or sometimes with nothing at all, because silence, too, is a powerful answer. You'll start to notice that the storms that once shook you now pass over like harmless clouds. The words that once cut deep now glance off the armor you built through self-awareness. You'll find yourself thinking more clearly, even in the heat of the moment, and choosing actions that align with your long-term values rather than short-term impulses. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the essence of Stoicism, not the absence of feeling, but the mastery over it. It's not about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming so in control of yourself that no one else's behavior can dictate your peace. When you practice this daily, you'll realize something remarkable. Calmness is not a rare gift. It's a skill. It's something you can sharpen, refine, and strengthen over time. And the more you practice, the more it becomes second nature, until your calm presence itself becomes a source of influence and respect in every room you walk into. So, as you move forward from this moment, let every challenge be a training ground. Let every emotion be a teacher. Let every difficult person or situation become an opportunity to prove to yourself that you can remain composed no matter the storm. Because in the end, the calm mind is the strong mind, and the strong mind is the free mind. If you found value in this message, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your greatest victory will never be over others. It will always be over yourself. Now go and practice the art of stillness and motion. Your peace is your power. Guard it with everything you have. And so, the Stoic path to calming the mind and steadying the emotions is not about becoming a cold, detached statue, nor is it about repressing the full range of your humanity. Instead, it's about building an inner fortress so that your peace no longer depends on outside conditions. A fortress that is not made of stone, but of perspective. A fortress that cannot be breached by insults, setbacks, betrayals, or the storms of daily life. A fortress whose foundation is self-awareness, whose walls are self-discipline, and whose roof is gratitude for simply being alive in this moment. Marcus Aurelius, after ruling one of the greatest empires in history, still reminded himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes a way. He knew that life would keep throwing challenges, that emotions would keep rising, and that the mind would sometimes feel restless. But instead of fighting these truths, he embraced them, turning every difficulty into a sharpening stone for his character. Your calm is your currency. It is the rarest form of wealth in a chaotic world. People will be drawn to it. Some will try to disrupt it. Many will never understand it. But for you, it will be your compass, your guide in every storm. Every day, you will be tempted to give your peace away. You will be provoked, rushed, tested, underestimated, or even mocked. And yet, every day, you will also have the choice to keep your calm. Not because the world deserves it, but because you do. A Stoic doesn't just hope for peace. A Stoic practices it, moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice, until it becomes second nature. Remember, you are not the noise around you. You are not the opinions of others. You are not even the storm of thoughts in your own head. You are the awareness that sees it all, unshaken, like a mountain that stands while the winds howl around it. And when you can live from that awareness, when you can keep your mind and emotion steady, even in chaos, you will have mastered the rare art that emperors, philosophers, and warriors have sought for centuries. Not to escape life, but to live it fully, clearly, and without fear. Because in the end, the calm mind sees more clearly, acts more wisely, and lives more freely than the restless one ever could. So, the question is, will you let the world dictate your state of mind? Or will you choose, like the Stoics before you, to stand in your own stillness, no matter what? And so, you begin to see that calming the mind and emotions is not about escaping life, but about stepping fully into it with a presence so solid, so steady, that no storm can uproot you. This is where true Stoic mastery comes, and it's not the absence of feeling, but the wisdom to choose how you feel. It's the ability to meet insults with silence, chaos with patience, and temptation with clarity. The average person lets the world push and pull him like a leaf in the wind. The Stoic becomes a mountain, unmoved by the weather, rooted deep in self-command. The key lies in cultivating awareness so sharp that you catch your mind a moment it starts to wander into fear, anger, or anxiety. You notice the sparks before they ignite into flames. You stop rehearsing old wounds. You stop reacting to shadows in your thoughts as if they were solid truths. You realize everything outside your mind exists in the space of uncertainty, yet your interpretation gives it meaning. And when you change your interpretation, you change your reality. This is why Stoicism teaches that the mind must be trained daily, not occasionally. Like a warrior sharpens his blade every morning, you sharpen your mental clarity every single day. Meditation is one form, but reflection, journaling, and intentional silence are others. In silence, the mind reveals its patterns. You begin to see how quickly it leaps to judgment, how often it assumes the worst, how easily it clings to things it can't control. With practice, that awareness becomes a doorway to freedom, because you can't control what you don't notice. And when emotions rise like a sudden wave, you do not try to fight them or push them away. You step aside and watch them pass. You name them. You understand them. You allow them to exist without letting them command your actions. Over time, you learn that your emotions are like weather, real but temporary. You are the sky vast, unshaken, and always present. The more you live in this state, the more you discover that most of life's noise is just that noise. Opinions, gossip, petty conflicts, and imagined threats all lose their power when you realize they have no place in your inner citadel. You stop giving your energy to things that weaken you. You begin to feel a peace, so deep it almost feels unnatural until it becomes your natural state. And here's the thing about this calmness, it's magnetic. People can sense it. They may not understand it, but they feel it. In a world where everyone is rushing, overreacting, and endlessly distracted, a calm, steady person becomes a rare presence, and rare presences are respected, not because you demand respect, but because your very existence shows that control is possible, that strength can be quiet, that power doesn't need to shout. So you keep training, you keep watching your thoughts, you keep choosing your interpretations, you stop letting the world dictate the climate inside your mind, and eventually, your calm becomes unshakable, not because the storms stop coming, but because you stop giving them the power to define you. A Stoic understands that peace is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is cultivated like a garden. It requires deliberate planting of thoughts, consistent removal of weeds, and patience for the flowers to grow. The weeds are your destructive emotions: envy, anger, fear, and pride. If you ignore them, they multiply. If you confront them calmly and remove them, you make space for the mind to breathe. And the mind that breathes clearly sees what matters and what doesn't. One of the most profound Stoic lessons is that emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. Anger, for instance, tells you that you feel your boundaries were crossed. Fear signals that you anticipate loss or harm. But the Stoic does not let the messenger become the master. Instead, he thanks the messenger for the warning, then calmly decide what action to take. This is where your power lies, in not letting emotion decide for you. The mind becomes calm not by escaping life, but by meeting life on its own terms without unnecessary resistance. Resistance to reality is the breeding ground of chaos in the mind. When you insist things should be different than they are, you live in constant battle with the present. But when you accept what is without resignation, but with clarity, you stop feeding the fire of emotional unrest. And yet, Stoicism does not teach passivity. It teaches active alignment with reality. It's like sailing. You do not control the wind, but you can control your sails. Complaining about the wind changes nothing, but adjusting the sails changes everything. When you stop fighting the wind and learn to work with it, the journey becomes smoother. The mind is often restless because it is scattered. It jumps between regrets about the past, worries about the future, and dissatisfaction with the present. The Stoic trains the mind to return again and again to the present moment, not as a vague idea, but as a deliberate act. Marcus Aurelius would tell himself daily, confine yourself to the present. This is not just poetic advice. It's mental training. Each time your mind drifts into unnecessary worry or rumination, you gently but firmly bring it back to now. Over time, the present becomes your anchor. Another key to calming the mind is understanding the nature of control. The Stoics divided the world into two categories: what is within your control and what is not. Everything in your control, your thoughts, your actions, your choices, deserves your energy. Everything outside your control, other people's opinions, the past, the weather, the outcome of events, deserves your acceptance. When you truly embrace this division, your mind stops wasting energy trying to rearrange the unchangeable. But here is the subtle beauty. The more you focus on what you can control, the more influence you gain over your circumstances. Why? Because you are directing energy to what actually moves the needle, your own actions and responses. The mind becomes calmer because it is no longer trying to carry the weight of the entire world, only its rightful share. In the Stoic path, solitude plays a role, not isolation, but intentional solitude. Just as a warrior sharpens his sword in private before the battle, the Stoic sharpens his mind in moments of stillness. Time alone with your thoughts, away from noise and distraction, is not wasted. It is essential. In silence, you can observe the patterns of your mind without reacting. You can see which thoughts are worth keeping and which need to be released. A calm mind is not one that has no thoughts, but one that is not dragged around by them. Emotions will still come, sometimes suddenly like a storm, but the Stoic learns to observe them, let them pass, and act from principle rather than impulse. It's like standing on the shore, watching waves crash. The untrained mind tries to fight the waves and gets pulled under. The Stoic stands firm, letting the waves rise and fall, knowing they will eventually calm. The truth is, much of our mental unrest comes from overattachment, clinging to things, people, and outcomes as if our happiness depends entirely on them. The Stoics saw attachment as a trap. They didn't advocate cold indifference, but they practiced what Epictetus called loving with a light hand. Appreciate deeply, but do not clutch tightly. When you hold everything lightly, your mind is freer. If something changes or ends, you are saddened, but you are not shattered. This also applies to self-image. Many people are anxious because they are always trying to maintain a certain appearance to others. But the Stoic realizes that chasing universal approval is a never-ending game that leads only to exhaustion. The calm mind comes when you stop performing for the crowd and live in alignment with your own values. If your actions are guided by virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, then the opinion of the masses becomes less important. And here lies one of the most liberating truths of Stoicism. Your peace is not at the mercy of the world. It is built within you, brick by brick, choice by choice, thought by thought. No one can steal it unless you hand it over. The Stoics understood that the mind is not naturally calm. It is naturally reactive. Left unchecked, it runs toward fear, anger, envy, and 100 other emotional traps. But just as a river can be guided by channels and barriers to flow in a certain direction, so can the mind be trained to flow toward stillness. This is why they place such emphasis on inner discipline. Without it, you are like a ship tossed about by storms. With it, you are the captain who can steer even in rough seas. When you are faced with conflict, ask yourself, what will happen if I react impulsively? Will it make the situation better? Or will it add fuel to the fire? Often, the greatest power lies in restraint, not retaliation. It is not a sign of weakness to choose silence. It is a sign of mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." That is the very heart of emotional control. When you stop trying to control what cannot be controlled, other people, their actions, their words, you conserve your energy for what you can truly influence, your own thoughts, your own choices, your own life. One of the most underestimated skills in calming the mind is slowing down your internal dialogue. Many people think the problem is the world, when in fact, the problem is a voice in their head that never stops speaking. The Stoics practice something like what we now call mindful observation. They would notice their thoughts as if they were watching clouds pass in the sky, without clinging to them, without identifying with them. This creates space. And in that space, emotions lose their grip. You can try this. When a strong emotion rises, anger, fear, frustration, pause and say to yourself, "This is anger." Name it, but do not become it. By doing this, you interrupt the chain reaction that would normally lead to hasty action. Epictetus taught that events themselves are neutral. It is our interpretation of them that disturbs us. Two people can face the same insult. One laughs it off, another explodes. The difference is not in the words spoken. It is in the mind that hears them. Another pillar of Stoic calm is humility. A calm mind is not obsessed with proving itself, correcting every wrong opinion, or winning every argument. Many conflicts in life arise because people feel the need to be right at all costs. But the Stoics would tell you, being right is less important than being at peace. This does not mean you accept lies or tolerate injustice. It means you choose your battles wisely. Seneca reminded us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. How much of your mental distress comes from imaginary scenarios, from rehearsing arguments that never happen, or reliving moments that are already over? When you let go of these, the mind naturally quiets. There is also the Stoic habit of returning to the present moment. They knew that the mind loves to wander into the future, worrying about what might happen, or into the past, regretting what has already happened. But neither is under our control. The only place you can act is here and now. Marcus Aurelius would write to himself, "Confine yourself to the present." This was not an excuse for carelessness, but a method for power. When you are fully engaged in this moment, the noise of the world fades. The mind finds something rare, simplicity. Stillness is not something you wait to feel. It is something you cultivate through repeated practice. It is built through morning rituals that center you, through deliberate pauses before speaking, through choosing to listen more than you speak. It is reinforced when you walk away from unnecessary drama, when you refuse to argue just to feed your pride, when you refuse to let someone else's chaos pull you into their storm. This is why the Stoics were often misunderstood. They seemed detached, when in fact, they were deeply present. They had learned to value their peace above the fleeting satisfaction of proving a point or getting the last word. And perhaps most importantly, the Stoics accepted that life would never be free of difficulty. Calm is not the absence of storms. It is the ability to stand firm in the middle of them. When you realize that pain, loss, and uncertainty are part of the human condition, you stop taking them as personal insults from fate. You stop demanding that life be easy before you can feel at peace. The Stoics knew that every hardship was an opportunity to practice virtue. Patience in the face of delay, courage in the face of fear, wisdom in the face of uncertainty. In this way, they turned every challenge into a training ground for the mind. If you can take these principles into your daily life, not as abstract ideas, but as living habits, you'll find that the mind slowly becomes your ally instead of your enemy. You will still feel emotions, but they will no longer control you. You will still face problems, but you will not face them in panic. And you will begin to experience what the Stoics considered true freedom, mastery of self, regardless of the world's chaos. And so the practice of calming the mind and emotions becomes less about forcing yourself into a perfect state of stillness, and more about cultivating a kind of mental resilience that holds steady even in the midst of chaos. The Stoics understood that peace is not the absence of difficulty. It is the mastery of one's response to it. If the world is a turbulent sea, then your mind, trained in Stoic discipline, becomes a steady ship that sails through storms without capsizing. This is why they place such importance on self-awareness. To know the currents of your thoughts, to notice the shift in the emotional winds, and to adjust your sails accordingly. You begin to respond instead of react, to pause instead of explode, to choose instead of being carried away. In time, this composure starts to radiate outward. People notice your stillness in situations that rattle others. They begin to see you as someone unshaken by insults, delays, or disappointments, a person who acts not out of impulse, but out of principle. That is the essence of Stoic calm. It's not suppression, but transformation. The heat of anger becomes the energy for decisive action. The weight of sadness becomes depth of thought. The flash of fear becomes clarity of mind. By living in this way, you turn life into a continual exercise in refinement, where every trial is a chance to deepen your control over yourself. You are no longer a passenger at the mercy of the ride. You are the captain. And as you grow in this mastery, you see that the storms you once dreaded were in fact the training grounds for your strength. You stop wishing for an easier sea and instead wish the skill to navigate any waters. And in that moment, you realize the ultimate truth the Stoics held dear. A calm mind is not given by the world, but forged by you in the quiet, disciplined moments when no one is watching. And so, when you step back and look at all of this, you realize that calming the mind and emotions is not a quick hack, nor is it about trying to never feel anything again. It is about developing mastery, not over the world, but over yourself. The storms outside may rage, the opinions of others may shift like the wind, and circumstances may twist in unexpected ways. But Stoic understand that peace is an inside job. You carry it within you, and nothing and no one can take it away unless you hand it over willingly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is your foundation. It's what allows you to keep your head when others lose theirs. It's what keeps you from being tossed around by fear, anger, or envy. It's what allows you to act with clarity, purpose, and dignity, no matter what life throws at you. Every breath is a chance to return to that calm center. Every thought is an opportunity to choose perspective over panic. Every moment is a decision point. Will you be ruled by impulses, or will you guide yourself with wisdom? The answer to that question, moment after moment, is what shapes the quality of your life. So walk forward with quiet confidence. Train your mind as you would a loyal friend. Guard your emotions as you would a precious treasure. Let the storms pass without dragging you under, and let your calm presence speak louder than any reaction could. That is a Stoic way, not to escape life, but to meet it with unshakable strength.